Every man knows this moment. The adrenaline rush. The unpredictable high of her sudden attention. The smile that finds you across the room and the subtle invitation laced within her laugh. You felt the signals, clear as day. A connection forms. Electricity in the air. Futures unfolding before your eyes. You did everything right. She opened up, let you see a glimpse of her secret world. And then, without warning, just as the intimacy sharpened, you feel it. Something shifts. Her energy withdraws. Her replies slow. The warmth cools. The riddle is eternal. Older than civilization. Older than language. Why do so many women pull away just when things are getting closer? Just when you both sensed possibility. Here is the paradox that will unravel 1,000 sleepless nights. The harder you try, the more dutiful you are, the more you fulfill the textbook checklist, the faster she drifts into the shadow. It feels unfair. It feels like a trick, like gravity itself has betrayed you. Men pride themselves on logic, on correctness. If I check all the boxes, if I listen, if I care, if I provide safety, surely it should work. Yet, time and time again, devotion is met with distance. The more you seek to reassure her, the more her doubts seem to grow. 1,000 men have stood here before, staring at unanswered texts, at one-word replies, replaying every moment, searching for the error, the glitch in communication. But the answer is more elusive, far more primal, than anything a modern script can decode. You have entered a realm older than words, a labyrinth shaped by millions of years of human evolution, sculpted by secret biological facts and silent chemical signals coded into a woman's DNA. Most men, for all their intelligence, still fail at the gate. They mistake agreements for attraction, comfort for captivation. They think compliance inspires desire. But to understand why she pulls away after getting closer, you must first understand a central, uncomfortable truth about female psychology. There are emotional laws at work beneath her conscious awareness. Ancient survival programs running in parallel to modern values. And if you ignore these, you are powerless, no matter how much right you do. Let this certainty settle into your bones. Attraction is not a choice. Attraction is a phenomenon orchestrated deep within her brain by chemical messengers you'll never see. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, norepinephrine. These molecules do not care for fairness, for effort, or the careful reason of a man's heart. The amygdala, that feral judge dwelling in the limbic system, seeks out not safety, but the sensation of emotional tension. Proof of life signals from a partner who might conquer the world, or at least shield her from it. Millennia ago, this was a matter of genetic survival. Those women who bonded too quickly to the wrong man lost everything. Those who tested, withdrew, watched, survived. Today, the same biology blooms underneath the etiquette of the digital age. What men misunderstand, what nobody dares to say out loud, is that the heart of female attraction is not about your willingness to enter her world, but your ability to remain a world of your own. You were told, appreciate her, listen, be available, share your feelings. The script of the modern man. But something happens, something dark and perplexing, when you offer too much too soon. When you cross the thin invisible line between mystery and meekness, the thrill erodes, the spell breaks. She does not always know why. She may even mourn it, a quiet regret hidden behind the aloof texts. Her body responds before her mind does, the network of her mirror neurons and her primal endocrine system sending a single, ancient command: retreat. The greatest advantage a man can learn is that her withdrawal is not a verdict on his value. It is a signal, a kind of test, a Darwinian sorting mechanism written into the bloodstream. It compels her to find the partner who most deeply stirs her internal world, not the one who stabilizes it prematurely. This is the secret you must dare to accept. The closer you get, the more you trigger her ancestral alarms, signals meant to measure whether your intentions are worth surrendering to, or a security hazard her genes can't afford. She needs tension. She needs to wonder, to long, to feel the unresolved question at the edge of intimacy. When a man seeks to eliminate every doubt, what he really eliminates is the very gravity that pulled her towards him. Science confirms this. The initial attraction is driven by dopamine, the wanting molecule, not by the liking molecules that make long-term bonds. When dopamine spikes, her world becomes colored, vivid, gravitational. As soon as that uncertainty fades, as soon as every move becomes predictable, those levels drop, and with it, the magnetic force behind her desire. Her brain's wiring, honed for the chase, dims in the comfort of certainty. The very safety men offer begins to feel like a prison, inauthentic, suffocating, devoid of intrigue. In ancient times, women who gave in too quickly risked not just their hearts, but survival. The cost was abandonment, social ruin, or worse. That survival memory runs through her veins, humming a danger melody beneath the symphony of modern romance. Neurology reveals it too. Women display heightened limbic resonance, the capacity to sense emotion and intention, far stronger than men. When you smooth every edge, reveal every card, you broadcast the secret message that you have nowhere else to go. Her subconscious devours this data, responds not with gratitude, but a cooling, a distance she herself tries, and fails, to rationalize. Your compliance, your emotional servitude, signals an absence of challenge. The courtship, with all its drama, dissolves into routine. In the psychic theater of her attraction, you have become just another actor following a script, one she has seen 1,000 times before. The primal circuitry hungers for drama, for uncertainty, for the possibility of conquest. She does not want a predictable drone. She wants a storm cloaked in calm, order on the surface, with depthless chaos underneath. You feel the fear, the creeping horror. Was I ever more than an option? Did my openness forfeit my advantage? Have I become, unintentionally, the thing she least desires? The man whose affections are too easy, too total, too given? Listen closely now. This does not mean women want cruelty, instability, or neglect. That is a shallow reading. What they crave is the paradoxical experience of tension within safety, a fascination within familiarity. When the tension fades, even the most genuine chemistry becomes fragile, equal parts desire and uncertainty. This is the biological fact that men must grasp deep in their bones. Every woman is the descendant of survivors, the ones who sensed, at the edge of closeness, whether a man possessed true power, command not just over her, but over himself and the world. She doesn't want to leave. She is compelled to, by circuitry far older than culture. This is the shadow truth that lingers in every unexplained coldness, every answer delayed, every sudden return to silence. Your urge is to repair, to hurry closer, to fill the space with comfort, with declarations, with reassurances. But each attempt is a broadcast. I am afraid to lose you. The predator becomes prey. The advantage slips, molecule by molecule, through your grasping fingers. Imagine all the science, all the psychology, all the centuries of seduction manuals and love letters, boiled down to this single, brutal tension. Biology is not on your side when you treat attraction as a negotiation, a formula that discipline can solve. There are men who have learned this secret. Men for whom every withdrawal is a signal, not of failure, but of a deeper invitation. They see the test not as punishment, but as the very proof that the stakes are real. If you can master this understanding, hold its dark wisdom, you stand among them. Every instinct in your body will try to rebel, to chase, to plead, to explain yourself, to banish all ambiguity. But the only way to gain true psychological advantage is to embrace your own mystery. To remain undaunted, not in arrogance, but in bone-deep self-possession. She must sense that your world spins on its own axis. Then, and only then, can you reawaken the chemical drama in her brain. Until you do, you are at the mercy of hormones you cannot see, of history you cannot rewrite. Look into the void between you and her. Feel the pull of her retreat. Understand that it is not you she flees, but the emptiness that certainty births. You have become, in your eagerness, predictable. A chapter finished before she was ready to close the book. All the while, you believed you were moving closer, doing everything right. But attraction is not a reward for effort. It is a phenomenon, wild, volatile, untamable, which selects for depth, for tension, for possibility. The reason she pulls away after getting closer is not the failure of your affection, but the failure of your tension. Tonight, as you stare into the pale blue light of your phone, waiting on the echo that never comes, remember this. In the game of attraction, emotion obeys older laws than logic. The hunter becomes the hunted the moment he forgets this. In her withdrawal, there is both a warning and an invitation. The question now is not how you will pursue her, but how you will answer the challenge she embodies. The drama of human desire is a dance with the unknown, and only those who thrive in the darkness, unafraid of ambiguity, can claim the advantage within her hidden mind. The next move, the next word, the next signal, each will be shaped not by what you say, but by who you truly are. When silence falls, you sense it, a knife-edge tension humming beneath every interaction, every stolen glance, every flicker of vulnerability she dares reveal. This is the only door that matters, and you are quietly aware that one wrong move may close it forever. In that hush, where anticipation and fear share equal footing, you taste the flavor of powerlessness, and perhaps for the first time, you realize what no book, no influencer, no well-meaning friend can teach. Desire is a wilderness, and in that expanse, the map belongs to someone else. You have tried every trick, rehearsed every line, but the gravitational rules of this game remain hidden in shadow, the unwritten code encrypted not in words, but in the churning chemistry beneath her skin. What if I told you that everything you've learned about connection is inverted in the crucible of true attraction? That the signals you interpret as closeness, her laughter, her confessions, her openness, are really probes, polar questions sent out in search of your mystery, your threat level, your ability to hold back what you most wish to give. Men ache to bridge the gap, seeking the comfort of shared experience, eager to quiet the doubts inside themselves by soothing the doubts in another. But in these moments, as you edge closer, the primal intelligence in her nervous system awakens, ancient, relentless, always scanning. Even as she listens, as her eyes drink you in, something alien within her subconscious is gauging. Will this man stand against the storm? Or is he merely another who seeks warmth, terrified of the cold? Imagine her mind is a terrain littered with hidden sensors, each programmed by the hard math of genetic history. Safety is attractive, up to a threshold. Beyond it, it ceases to be proof of strength and curdles into proof of need. Comfort is a currency, but in excess, it devalues itself. The paradox is as cruel as it is inescapable. The closer she allows you, the more desperately she needs to know whether you will remain your own axis. Every soft answer, each unguarded confession, is weighed, not in the ledger of empathy, but in the calculus of risk. Her ancestors survived not by collapsing into the arms of the first loving soul, but by carrying the torch of scrutiny, by reading the signals of strength and danger with lethal clarity. In her withdrawal, you are witnessing a defense mechanism older than memory, emotional survival enacted through the choreography of doubt. You do not fail when she recoils. You enter the arena where all men are sorted. This is the crucible, the fire in which advantage is forged for those who can survive ambiguity. The greatest test is not whether you can be vulnerable, but whether you can maintain your own internal world, your unbroken gaze facing both desire and disappointment with the same indifference. Attraction may begin with chance, but it is sustained by polarity, a field of tension between two worlds that could collide or orbit, but never fuse into one formless entity. The unsubtle man, taught by a culture addicted to emotional transparency and immediate gratification, collapses that tension at the first sign of discomfort. He confesses, he pleads, He explains. He offers so much of himself that nothing is left for her to chase. Nothing left for her ancient algorithms to test. Understand this. In every phase of courtship, the female psyche seeks proof, not through declarations, but through your resistance to being unmade by her perception. A man possessed by his own value radiates the kind of signal she cannot manufacture or dismiss. It is the energy of self-containment, the scent of someone who is neither afraid of her nor enslaved by her approval. In this dance, the most magnetic men are those who can tolerate, indeed, cultivate, the raw tension that uncertainty brings. They embody an emotional paradox, available, yet unattainable, interested, yet undemanding, invested, yet unshaken by loss. Neurology sketches the outlines of this drama in clear, chilling terms. When uncertainty enters the brain, dopamine surges, the molecule that marks risk, novelty, anticipation, the not knowing, the wondering, the possibility of loss or conquest. These are the ingredients that turn simple comfort into a river of craving. The amygdala, ever the sentry, whispers warnings and yearnings in equal measure. Its signals echo through the limbic system, orchestrating a symphony of hormonal arousal and vigilance. The moments you try to soothe, to erase every suspicion, to make yourself an open book, you inadvertently silence this music, and with it, the ancient urge to connect more deeply. Worse, every move to reassure reveals your inner calculus. She sees, with terrifying clarity, the fear that animates your gestures, the fear of loss masquerading as love. The tragedy of the dutiful man is not that he loves too much, but that he loves from a place of scarcity. He is haunted by the prospect of withdrawal, and so his energy, compulsively corrective, leaks into every word and gesture. Please, let me prove I am worthy. Let me secure what is slipping. Let me make you see I am not like the others. But the body betrays him. He leans in too far. His texts become longer, his replies swifter, his silences filled with anxious explanations. He confuses his compliance for connection, never realizing that each concession is another signal that the balance has tipped, and not in his favor. Yet there are rare men who are not numb, nor cold, but deeply attuned to this polarity, who allow space within closeness. These men understand that tension is not the enemy of intimacy, but its mother. The female mind craves the chemistry of anticipation, the chemical edge of maybe, long before the cortex has rationalized things. Her biology is already asking, is this man moved by his own vision? Or is every movement a countermeasure to the threat of my distance? In these split seconds, her body follows ancient scripts, sparking arousal not through comfort, but through unpredictability, the sense that you may have secrets, that your world is larger than her influence, that your direction cannot be diverted by her moods. This quietly electrifies the field between you. It does not matter how evolved, how intellectual, how self-assured your would-be partner appears on the surface. At the core of every attraction lies a spiral of neurochemicals, a circuitry untouched by social progress. Women, far more than men, are neurologically tuned to detect power, not simply brute aggression, but the sovereign force of self-ownership. Modern dating becomes a masquerade, a battleground of signals obscured behind etiquette and expectation. But beneath every text, every silence, every delayed reply, the truth persists. She wants to be chosen, but not too quickly, pursued, but never by someone who surrenders the chase too soon. Social narrative celebrates harmony, emotional openness, unending reassurance, and while these build security, they do not ignite desire. As soon as she reads you, as soon as your motives become transparent, the ancient machinery powers down. The dopamine that once made her wake up thinking of your presence now dissolves into gray routine. It is not that she stops caring, it is that her biology lacks the voltage to drive her further. You watch as her gaze grows distant, her words cool, her interest becomes transactional. She may even mourn her own fading thrill, unable to explain where the spark vanished, why your affection now registers more as pressure than pleasure. Here lies the double bind. The deeper you lean, the further she recedes. The very effort to secure love signals an underlying fear. And in this fear, she recognizes the absence of true advantage. Your willingness to suffer for connection becomes the poison in its veins. It is only the man who risks loss, who allows the discomfort of suspense, who can sustain the chemical gravity that keeps desire alive. This is not cruelty, nor withholding for its own sake, but the expression of authentic value. You do not offer your world as a desperate consolation, but as a landscape for her to explore, to earn, to stand in awe of. Every culture, every generation, has tried to domesticate this dance with new scripts and rules, but the human nervous system offers no escape from its own design. Even in moments of apparent transparency, the female mind is tracking the subtle signals, the delay between question and answer, the ambiguity in your intentions, the way you hold back your own need for reassurance. The more you can withstand the tension of her withdrawal, the more you show that your selfhood is intact, impervious to the tidal pulls of her mood. In that presence, she finds what centuries of security could not grant, a sense of fascination, a hidden desire kindled not by possession, but by possibility. When you are tempted to repair distance by leaning in, resist. When pressed for explanations, offer paradox. The man who is most attractive is not the man who bends, but the man who shapes the world around his own gravity. His advantage is not brute dominance, but emotional sovereignty, a quiet self-sufficiency that sparks speculation, that keeps her guessing, that never bows to the tyranny of being understood too quickly. You must become the question she cannot answer. In that mystery, her biology comes alive, her interest rediscovers its source. It is not enough to possess knowledge without discipline. Instincts will betray you every time, summoning the urge to text, to reassure, to ask, to explain away what must be left unspoken. The truly magnetic man does not swing between hot and cold, presence and absence. As a game, he simply dwells with ease in the state most cannot endure, unresolved desire. He does not need to check her phone, puzzle over silences, or dissect each interaction for hidden meaning. By holding fast to his own center, he allows her the space to choose, and it is in this freedom that real attraction renews itself. The paradox extends. The more she tests, the more she withdraws, the more you are presented with opportunity, not threat. To the untrained, every silence is a wound. To the initiated, it is a theater where power plays out. Her distance is an invitation for you to solidify your worth, to let time and uncertainty serve as allies rather than enemies. Only when you can relax into this tension does the field shift. You become both the prize and the challenge. A man whose affections are worth winning but not cheaply given. Do not mistake this insight for cynicism, or the cold logic of manipulation. True attraction thrives not on calculated withholding, but on the lived reality of depth. You must actually be what you present. A man whose days and dreams are filled whether she chooses you or not. A man whose presence is an event, not a reassurance. If you construct mystery as a tactic, she detects the artifice. Her limbic system smells the difference. Authenticity, not gamesmanship, powers the signal she cannot resist. You do not need to act uninterested. You need to be so invested in your own purpose that her interest becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Every interaction is a negotiation of emotional oxygen. Suffocate her with certainty, and you drive her away. Starve her of attention, and you build only walls. But create a crucible where both intimacy and ambiguity are possible, and the ancient switchboards of her psyche light up once more. It is in this delicate field, this clash of absence and presence, interest and indifference, that love in its most intoxicating, enduring form is generated. Our culture is addicted to easy closure and fast answers. It recoils from the void out of which true desire is born. But a man of advantage learns to see the void as his kingdom, a place where he neither clings nor flees, where he allows her withdrawal to play out without panic or accusation. Here, He stands still at the center of the cyclone, unmoved, quietly dangerous, yet unmistakably safe. This is the paradox she aches to test. Strength without threat, warmth without weakness, affection unconstrained by the need to possess. In every evolutionary epoch, the winners, those who left their mark upon the gene pool, were not the most compliant, nor the most aggressive, but those who harnessed the tension between presence and mystery. Their blood runs through the veins of every woman you have ever admired, every smile that ever felt like an unveiling. She is not your enemy, nor your puzzle. She is, in her very distance, the guardian of standards, a curator of potential, a priestess of risk. Your job is not to dismantle her defenses with desperation, but to show that you are worthy of her uncertainty, deserving of the drama that makes love an art and not a contract. This is why, even in an age of swipes and matches and instant gratification, the man who prevails is never the one most easily acquired. He is the anomaly, the curve breaker, the contradiction. He listens, but does not appease. He offers, but does not yield. He feels, but is never ruled by feeling. In his eyes, a woman does not see her reflection, but the possibility of becoming more. In his arms, she does not collapse, but expands. He sparks a rare hunger, not for comfort, but for elevation, for a taste of a life that will never be entirely known, yet always worth pursuing. So, when her light fades, when her attention flickers, when once vivid exchanges become half answers and polite deferrals, remember, these are not mere rejections. They are the signals of the deeper economy of desire, an evolutionary auction in which only those with the courage to withstand ambiguity can bid. The art is not in chasing, not in convincing, but in simply existing in your full dimensionality when the world demands you collapse into a one-note performance. In this way, the biological fact of tension becomes your greatest asset, your hidden advantage. Each silence, each withdrawal, each moment of doubt becomes the raw material out of which you forge meaning and momentum. Most men panic in the presence of space. The exceptional man recognizes it as his proving ground. His discipline radiates not as cool indifference, but as the fertile mystery in which all new forms of attraction take root. The psychological game is not one of dominance or submission, of win or lose, but of polarity, of field and counterfield, approach and resistance. It is the very fact that you can lose her, and yet refuse to lose yourself, that animates the dance of pursuit and retreat. Women withdraw not because you are unworthy, but because they must feel the magnetic pull of a man whose reality is undented by the threat of isolation. In your ability to survive her absence, you demonstrate the only truth that matters. You are a world unto yourself. And the door remains open. Philosophers will tell you the strongest relationships are built on trust, on mutual transparency, on endless reassurance. But trust, in its rawest form, is tested at the edge of the unknown. Will you remain unbroken when she turns to shadows? When her affection dissipates like mist, will you fill the void with need, or let it remain, charged and fertile, as a testament to both your difference and your strength? Only there, where most men fear to tread, do you become unforgettable. The question she cannot answer, the future she cannot predict. In those nights when you wonder if you were ever truly wanted, when you replay old words hoping to find a glitch you can fix, sit with the silence instead. Let the ache become your tutor. Remember that the signals of desire are written in electrical storms, not in gentle breezes. Your nervous system cries out for comfort. Your advantage lies in withholding it, not from her, but from the urge to fix what was never meant to be managed. You dwell within the paradox, dependable, yet untamable. The only antidote to her withdrawal is not rapprochement, but resilience, not performance, but presence. Every interaction is an audition she may never declare, but always conducts. You will be measured, not by your words, but by your willingness to stand in the uncertainty her instincts demand. Do not fear the coldness. Recognize it as the signal by which the unfit are weeded out. by which the truly sovereign mark themselves not with noise, but with silence brought to life by self-possession. Tonight, everything you learned about romance, about partnership, about being chosen, is remade in the image of this singular law. The only way to keep her truly drawn to you is to never let your value be exhausted by exposure. Become the horizon, never the map. Cultivate the advantage of rarity, the chemistry of distance, the art of living at the edge of what you know, and what you have yet to reveal. You were never meant to surrender at the first sign of fear, nor to chase what flees in order to certify your longing. Men of advantage do not bargain with attraction. They stand beneath its lightning and let themselves be transformed, paradox by paradox, until she sees in you not a solution, but an invitation to a deeper riddle. It is in this tension, this dark gravity, ancient as blood, that you locate all true power. You begin to understand why the drama never dies, why every retreat is both an ending and a new beginning, a signal that the hidden machinery of human nature still governs the field. Through science, through story, through the endless spiral of hope and fear and effort, the only men who cross the threshold are those who learn, finally, to honor the void as both warning and welcome. The world is silent, and your next move is not to chase, but to dwell in the question of what comes when you become the storm she cannot help but chase. Now you stand at the thin, charged borderland where logic fails and instinct takes command, where your yearning to understand collides with the relentless truth of your biology. The night is thick with questions, her silence grows louder, an echo magnified by every unanswered call, every glance that no longer lingers. Most men recoil from this void, filling it with frantic gestures or retreating altogether. Yet here, beneath the clinical surface of dating advice and love languages, lies the crucible where true power is shaped, not from conquest, but from a revelation older than words, intimacy. For the feminine mind is never a guarantee, it is won, lost, and won again, in 1,000 silent battles of tension and release. The paradox is alive and relentless, each time you draw near, offering the currency of affection, reassurance, and safety. Her ancient mind calculates, not with spreadsheets, but with split-second, chemical intuition. This is a realm of signals, as subtle as the dilation of a pupil or the microsecond delay in her voice. As feral as her ancestors crouched on the savannah, what you interpret as connection, she tests as resilience. What you mean as certainty, her subconscious reads as closure, a door locked too soon, an adventure denied. Peer deeper into this sacred theater of attraction and you discover a primal economy. The currency is tension. The exchange is uncertainty. Female psychology was forged in a world where safety was never enough, where the luxury of comfort led not to ecstasy but to extinction. Every neuron in her limbic system is honed to distinguish not just who loves her, but who moves her, who possesses gravity strong enough to disrupt her orbit without shattering her world. Nature has gifted the female brain an exquisite ability to sense possibility in turbulence, to discern leadership in restraint, and to detect depth beneath the mask of calm. This is why the more you chase certainty, the more she is compelled to test the foundation upon which you stand. When a woman pulls away, she is not rejecting your value, she is summoning your direction. She is watching, wordlessly. Will you seek yourself, or lose yourself in pursuit of her approval? Will you collapse under the weight of her withdrawal, or emerge renewed by the discipline of self-possession? These are questions not even she could name in daylight, yet her genetic memory demands answers. Understand, you are not competing against other men, or against her intellect, or even against her expectations. You are wrestling with evolution itself, an endless game of signal and response, of hidden desire pitted against visible security. When you feel that cold front sweep over her, when her gaze turns from invitation to ambivalence, when texts that once sparkled now seem carved from stone, know this is not the failure of your effort. It is a test that only the self-contained can master. She senses whether your comfort in darkness surpasses her own. She requires proof, not of your devotion, but of your emotional weather, your capacity to stir storms, to threaten her composure without endangering her heart. The science is both cruel and liberating. Within her brain, dopamine is the whispering architect of intrigue. The promise of what is just beyond reach is far more potent than anything owned outright. Certainty drowns novelty. Stability suffocates the pulse of risk. The feminine psyche is calibrated to oscillate between hope and uncertainty, with each surge in anticipation amplifying her desire, each lull into routine dampening the very chemistry of attraction. She is calibrated by ancient selection pressures, millennia of watching men compete and falter, searching for the one who withstands the trial of her hesitations, who answers her doubt neither with supplication nor aggression, but with unapologetic direction. Consider the labyrinthine dance of oxytocin and dopamine. When you fuse emotional disclosure with strategic ambiguity, you grant her the dual blessing of closeness and suspense. This is not manipulation. It is the honoring of biological law. Her mind yearns for the unknown to be revealed piece by piece, for the narrative tension to crescendo, rather than evaporate in a flash of easy transparency. She longs for the unwrapping of mystery, not the numb comfort of certainty, but the living edge of discovery. Each time you withhold a secret, each time you assert your own boundary, each time you show that your world spins on its own axis, you transmit the signal her instincts are wired to notice. Here is a man whose center does not collapse in the gale of her moods. It is here, at the knife edge between intimacy and autonomy, that you must dwell if you hope to kindle her hidden desire. Her retreat is not an exit, but an invitation to remember your value apart from her validation. The man who fails this test becomes invisible to her subconscious. His presence, once a beacon, now dissolves into the fog of routine. The one who thrives becomes, paradoxically, more solid in her absence. His withdrawal signals strength. His silence hints at depth. His patience reveals discipline. Witness this truth in the wild. Nature selects not for the most compliant, but for the most compelling. The peacock, radiant in display, is not chosen for his utility or safety, but for his audacity and flair. In human terms, the display is not feathers, but purpose, passion, direction, the quiet, unshakable certainty that you are enough, regardless of her reception. This magnetism cannot be faked, for her limbic resonance detects the smallest whiff of neediness, of covert contract seeking. In a world drowning in words and abundance, what she trusts is the emotional signal beneath your gestures, the undeniable evidence that you can provide the adventure she craves, the uncharted territory her spirit recognizes even when her tongue protests otherwise. This is why, at the moment you feel most compelled to chase, you must instead become the anchor in the storm, the man whose desire is not anxious, but selective, whose affection is precious, not performative. Every test she mounts is the echo of ancestral necessity. Speak your truth. Reveal your ambition, but never surrender the pulse of your own life for the fleeting comfort of reassurance. To do so would be to betray both yourself and the very dynamic that first lit the fire of her curiosity. Reflect now on the modern rituals of courtship, the endless digital interactions, the performative displays, the instant answers to every ping. Never before have men been so exposed, so available, yet never has true masculine magnetism been so rare. The ease of communication has become a prison, flooding the market with predictability, starving the dynamic of its ancient drama. In this flood, your only advantage is to reclaim the tension, to cultivate the art of becoming both refuge and risk, stable, yet unknowable, interested, yet not entangled, capable of affection, yet not enslaved by it. Between you and her lies a territory unmapped, each of her retreats a landmark, each silence an uncharted rift. You may fear that her distance is a death sentence, yet for those who understand the paradox, it is a springboard for greater intensity. What most men mistake for rejection is, in truth, an opportunity to reveal the scarcity of your attention, to sharpen the silhouette of your presence, to become rare in a sea of availability. The biology is inescapable. Scarcity forms value. Dopamine thrives on uncertainty. When you make yourself the reward that must be pursued, you awaken her evolutionary impulse to invest, to wonder, to strive to secure what is not yet certain. How easily we forget that the strongest bonds are those forged not in the doldrums of predictability, but in the crucible of emotional volatility. This is not chaos for its own sake. It is the discipline of unpredictability, the mastery of self that makes you a challenge worthy of conquest. She cannot respect what is always present. She cannot desire what is already owned. Your greatest advantage is your willingness to risk her approval for the sake of your own integrity. To accept that sometimes, the only path back into her orbit is to let her drift. To trust time and nature to restore the gravity that words and gifts can never enforce. Let us venture further into the biology. The fertile mind of a woman craves unpredictability because her ancestors survived by selecting mates who were both strong and mysterious, who revealed purpose in adversity and calm amid chaos. Neurologically, she is sensitive to the cues that betray genuine leadership, the capacity to self-soothe, to resist desperate grasping, to move through uncertainty with confidence. Each spike of dopamine in her bloodstream is a signal that the story is not yet told, that the stakes remain high, the contest unresolved. And what of the deep current of oxytocin, the chemical of bonding? It is a slow fire, fed not by routine, but by bursts of passion, intervals of uncertainty, interludes of longing. The architecture of female bonding is a tapestry woven from the interplay of security and suspense. Too much security, without suspense, unravels the weave. Too much suspense, without security, tears it apart. Your task is not to extinguish her doubt, but to contain it, to become the vessel strong enough to house both her longing and her fear. This dynamic runs like a fault line through every love story, every myth, every whispered confession at midnight. The epic heroes of legend, the lovers who haunt history, possessed not only strength, but inscrutability, the power to enthrall by withholding as much as by giving. The science of modern romance vindicates the poetry. The feminine mind is hardwired to equate unpredictability with desirability, to crave the delicious agony of not knowing, the vibrant aliveness of longing unfulfilled. It is in this space, between your desire and your absence, that her attraction grows feral and urgent, blooming wild in the unfenced gardens of uncertainty. You are not required to play games. You are commanded to become unplayable. A man whose value does not wax and wane with her attention, but self-generates from the engine of your own ambitions, your own creative fire, your own code. This is the most seductive paradox of all. Women are not drawn to men who need them, but to men who choose them. The more you stand complete, self-sustaining, the more her instincts demand to close the gap. So what, then, should you do when she withdraws? The answer is not in frantic action, but in subtle recalibration. Pull your energy back. Intensify your own pursuits. Disappear into the discipline of your purpose. Let your silences stretch, your schedule fill, your attention wander to the horizon of your becoming. The less she feels you straining to bridge the gulf, the more she feels its gravity. Every hour you withhold becomes a signal, an evolutionary flare shot across the dark sky of her subconscious. Here is someone who must be pursued, not just placated. The cost of ignoring this law is steep. Should you collapse into neediness, should you chase with open hands, you become the emotional equivalent of a blank wall, dependable, but devoid of intrigue, generous, but stripped of magnetism. She does not consciously want this fate for either of you. Her biology leaves her no choice. She retreats, hoping you will find your way home to yourself, so that she can once again lose herself in the thrill of your mystery. Remember, every withdrawal is a storm and an omen. Her mind tests your resolve, not to punish you, but to divine your substance. Women are creatures of emotional weather. They sense the shifting barometric pressure of your composure, the sharpness of your absence, the warmth of your eventual return. Each phase of closeness and distance is a cycle older than love itself. If you resist, you stagnate. If you flow, you conquer. In the end, her attraction is not a puzzle to be solved, but a phenomenon to be respected. To court her is to court uncertainty itself. To become the rare man comfortable in ambiguity. To cast aside the brittle armors of performance and approval seeking in favor of unwavering self-direction. She will test. She will retreat. She will watch, not out of malice, but out of the relentless logic of survival. Your opportunity lies not in circumventing this dance, but in mastering your steps, dancing with darkness, not away from it, holding the tension, not dissolving it with promises you do not believe. The greatest men of history knew this secret, though rarely did they name it. Poets sang of it, philosophers hinted at it, shamans harnessed its wisdom. The laws have not changed, only the disguises. Her retreats are opportunities. Your reactions are the signal she needs to trust, not your charm, but your center. Those who endure this crucible without disintegrating, who become more mysterious in the vacuum of her absence, become both lover and legend. So, beneath every cold text, every unexplained silence, every vanishing warmth after the blaze of connection, recognize the ancient riddle at work. Does your value depend on her affirmation, or flourish apart from it? Does your inner weather resist her storm, or adapt to its rhythm? When she pulls away, do you chase her shadow, or tend to the fire of your own becoming? The answers are never final, for the dance is eternal. Each silence contains both a threat and an overture, a warning and a seduction. The most potent men are not those who master her, but those who master themselves, who wield tension not to manipulate, but to inspire, who reveal just enough to inflame curiosity, while concealing enough to remain a question even in the fullness of intimacy. She will never tell you this. Most often, she can't. Her biology is the author of her retreat. Her spirit is the audience awaiting your next move. She wants to surrender, but only to the man whose certainty is immune to her withdrawal, whose depth cannot be sounded in a single night or 1,000. Do not fear her distance. Let it awaken your independence. Let it season your silence and hone your boundaries, until every gesture, every glance, every word becomes laced with the forbidden wisdom of scarcity and abundance entwined. For in the end, the only certainty worth offering is this: that you remain forever more than she can possess. Forever unpredictable, forever alive in her imagination. The game of attraction is not a contest of effort, but a crucible of character. Lose yourself in her approval, and your spark is extinguished. Hold yourself apart, and you become the gravity she cannot resist. Let the emptiness between her words become sacred. Let your withdrawal become not absence, but a signal of mastery. The advantage rests not in pursuit, but in presence, active, elusive, infinitely intriguing, in the deep code of her nerves and heart. This is the signal she has been bred to obey, the test she has been compelled to set. When you meet her at the threshold of her retreat, undaunted and whole, you become not the solution to her uncertainty, but the very mystery by which she is forever enchanted. That is the only advantage a man can claim that lasts beyond the first thrill, beyond the first night, beyond the fickle chemistry of beginnings. Every signal, every instinct, every biological fact converges into a single, uncaged reality. A dance that ends only when you forget who you are. Let her withdrawal be your summons. Let your restraint be her invitation. Only then will you glimpse the deeper law running beneath the rituals of the modern age, in every affair of the heart. It is not compliance, but tension; not comfort, but ambiguity; not certainty, but the everlasting allure of the unknown, that rules the tides of desire. Dwell there, where certainty cannot reach. Hold your place in the shadows of her retreat. There you will discover the realm where all true attraction is born, and if you dare to remain, to embrace the volatility, you will possess the only signal that matters, the rare, ungovernable gravity that draws her back into your world, again and again, as long as you remain unafraid of the dark. in the hush that follows her retreat, in that precise silence where your sense of manhood feels cracked and naked. A hidden door opens, a portal to knowledge that most never choose to step through. This is the hour when the bravest ask, if affection is not enough, what dwells in the labyrinth of her mind that calls for more? You are standing at the edge of the shadow, hearing the echo of your own uncertainty, your self-worth on the scale. But there, within the hush, lies the forbidden lexicon of attraction, a language spoken not in words, but in the involuntary synapse firings of the ancient mind. To enter this territory is to look with unflinching honesty at your place in a game older than history. And it is to accept, perhaps for the first time, that your longing for certainty is your greatest disadvantage. Imagine, for a moment, the architecture of her psyche, a fortress, both inviting and defended, its walls built by ancestors who survived not by accident, but by detecting risk beneath the gentlest smile. Biologically, her body functions like a living seismograph. Each gesture, each pause, each sharpening of your focus triggers a cascade of silent calculations in the shadowy theater behind her eyes. At the root of female psychology is not just the hope for connection, but the relentless pursuit of invisible proof. Do you command chaos? Or are you consumed by it? Are you sovereign in your desire? Or adrift in a tide of need? You sense her assessment, her gaze reading you with a scrutiny sharper than your own mirror. At the boundary where intimacy and vulnerability blend, her oldest circuits come online, searching for the invisible, congruence, confidence, an inner axis that cannot be toppled by her withdrawal. Where men believe in the power of explicit promises, women detect the shape of your inner world through behavioral signal, mirroring not what you say, but what rings out in the silence behind your words. Evolution has made her an emotional polygraph, tuned with devastating accuracy to detect hesitation, desperation, bluff. Here is the biological fact you cannot wish away. In the crucible of ancient selection, women were forced to hone sensitivity to invisible dangers, to the instability hidden beneath suitors' pleasant smiles. Those who failed paid the price not in heartbreak, but in extinction. That memory carved itself into the language of her nervous system, into the way her skin registers your mood, the way her heartbeat picks up not with your declarations, but with your ability to hold tension. At the first whiff of neediness, unspoken though it may be, her dopamine system begins its slow withdrawal, recalibrating the entire chemical field of her desire. This is the hidden advantage the few possess, the ability to remain an enigma, not out of spite or manipulation, but out of a fundamental relationship to one's own center, a gravitational presence that supercharges every encounter with something she cannot name, but cannot help but feel. If you mistake her withdrawal for rejection, you miss the point. In truth, her distance is an unconscious probe, a test for the signal of real strength, a pressure against your boundaries to see if you truly exist beyond the pleasure you offer her. What few dare to realize is that in the tension between approach and withdrawal, a second, deeper attraction is born. The chemistry of this tension is not a fairy tale, but a collision of hormonal storms. Dopamine and norepinephrine fighting for attention in the fires of uncertainty. Oxytocin lurking at the edges, binding her only when your presence feels earned, not given away freely. Every time you hesitate, fill the void, race to spill your feelings, her mind records a data point. You may be safe, but at what cost? The price of being fully understood, fully claimed, is often boredom, an emotional flatline her ancient mind cannot abide. Consider the paradox. The same systems that instruct her to seek safety, to choose security, are the ones that reduce your magnetic power if you offer yourself too easily. Biology, ruthlessly impartial, rewards the man who can balance care with detachment, presence with unpredictability, the man whose world continues to spin regardless of her orbit. Her desire is awakened anew each time you refuse to collapse into need. Each time your actions signal that, though you appreciate her, you remain fundamentally unclaimed by her approval. This is not cruelty. It is the oxygen of ongoing attraction. This is why the men most adored, most longed for, often tread the knife's edge between intimacy and enigma. They hold back just enough truth to keep her mind restless, just enough affection to keep her heart hoping, but never enough that she can predict their every move. She wakes each day still searching for proof. Her nervous system, shaped by 1,000 generations of caution, pulses with questions. Does he truly see me? Or does he see only the illusion I grant him? Has he measured me? Or is he still searching through my depths? You see, the heart of female psychology is not static. Her desire waxes and wanes with marginal shifts in your behavior. What thrilled her yesterday may bore her tomorrow if you become a prisoner of her expectation. Her brain, awash with the chemistry of anticipation, downloads signal after signal, studying the small inconsistencies. The way your eyes drift to the horizon instead of to the floor. The crackle of laughter that seems to hide a secret. Every ambiguity is dopamine. Every unexpected result is a micro-dose of attraction. Evolution has designed her as a test of your unshakable presence. This is not simply a philosophical exercise. It bleeds into every aspect of modern relationships. The very complaints that echo through couples counseling, through midnight phone calls, through quiet tears behind closed doors, are but the outer symptoms of this biological machinery. She may tell herself, and you, that she wants transparency, reassurance, perfect alignment, but as soon as you comply fully, offer every piece of explanation, flood the void with your longing, her internal currents shift, her attraction ebbs like a tide drawn back from the shore, not by malice, but by a circuit deeper than words. If only you could pierce her inner monologue in these moments of retreat, you would hear a chorus of confusion, her rational mind searching for why the thrill faded just as you bared your soul. Why laughter died when you tried to lock in the future so soon. She may feel racked by guilt, longing to rekindle the spark with explanations, with forced appreciation, but desire does not obey guilt. Attraction is the child of chaos, and it withers when caged. This is why so many men, taught to believe in transactional romance, are left stranded. They follow scripts designed not by biology, but by propaganda. They become caretakers, emotional janitors, bartering affection for connection, and it works, for a season. Then, as if preordained, the rituals falter, anticipation fades, touch cools, and a vague yearning enters her eyes. The tragedy is not that men fail to love, but that they fail to understand the complex interplay of tension and safety, mystery and warmth, that awakens the deepest layers of her nervous system. To court a woman is to walk a razor's edge between surrender and sovereignty. Each step must signal, at some level, that your life burns bright beyond her. The fire within is not an offering to her, but a signal that she must measure herself against your gravity. The tension you sustain within yourself is the very current that breathes life into her attraction. When you collapse into emotional transparency too soon, you shut the window through which desire entered. The possibility that she must seek your depths, not just be handed them. Neuroscience tells us this dance is choreographed not by logical intention, but by limbic resonance, an ancient circuitry of the brain responsible for emotion, intuition, and rapport. When you radiate self-possession, when your attention flickers as much to your own dreams as to her approval, you emit an electromagnetic pulse impossible to fake. Women register this not just consciously, but somatically. An increased heartbeat, a flush of skin, a feeling of anticipation impossible to articulate. Your unpredictability, the sense that your affection must be courted, not commanded, is the cradle of her longing. This is the axis of advantage few master. It requires discipline, not just of action, but of emotional containment, in your willingness to let her go, to live unbothered in the space between message and response. You transmit the ultimate signal. You are the rare man who recognizes danger in comfort, who protects his mystery as fiercely as any treasure. You show her, by your composure in the silence, that your world continues whether she rushes in or rushes out. The anchor is fixed. Your value is not a wager on her affection, but a force unto itself. In practical terms, this translates to 1,000 small choices. It is the refusal to overtext, to indulge every impulse to reassure, to explain. It is the wisdom to wait, deliberately, unapologetically, when the unknown stretches between you. It is the patience to recognize that her withdrawal is a necessary ritual, that the space she creates is the arena in which her desire is put to proof. Each delay is a filament in the web of tension, each unanswered question a bead of dopamine, heightening her internal drama. Too many men race to fill these gaps, believing they are healing wounds, when in fact they are erasing the terrain in which attraction flourishes. The man who wins is the man who can sit in the discomfort, who understands, on a cellular level, that nature abhors a vacuum, yet attraction is born there. As you perfect this paradox, your own internal chemistry transforms. You are no longer an applicant at the gates of her approval, but a sovereign in your own kingdom, extending invitation, not supplication. Here, the psychological dimension turns philosophical. What does it mean to sustain your own mystery? To live in a way that is at once open and untouchable? Is it arrogance, or is it radical self-respect? The answer dwells in the stories of evolution, in the Ice Age fire-lit courts, in the dance of peacocks and lions, in every symbolic gesture that signals a refusal to become common. Men were not selected for their capacity to please, but for their ability to inspire unsettled awe, a reverence laced with danger. The uncanny sense that they held secrets, powers, hungers as yet untamed. This is the hidden desire running through every modern encounter, camouflaged by etiquette and expectation, yet revealed in those irrational moments when her eyes linger longer than politeness demands, when her laughter comes easily only with men who posture at the edge of her understanding. The biological fact is almost tragic in its stubborn simplicity. Comfort reduces craving. Certainty tempers anticipation, even in an era of safety, of abundance, of intellectual enlightenment. The endocrine system remains a dark forest, drawing her by signal, not by argument. She may protest, seek to resolve, even argue for clarity, but watch, always watch, the signals issued by her body, the direction of her gaze, the tension in her silence. Her desire gravitates always to the man whose world reflects, but never entirely reveals, his depths. She seeks not just to be comforted, but to feel the brush of awe at your existence, that you are both with her, and yet unavailable for total consumption. This is why, in every age, stories are told of the enigmatic lover, the man who could never be fully mapped by any woman's affection. He is not cruel, but impenetrable, not distant, but deeply present, yet impossibly oriented towards something grander than the union itself. His attachments are strong, but never totalizing. His attention is fierce, but never desperate. It is in that balance that the greatest attraction blooms. If you experiment with this realization, you will see the immediate behavioral consequences. When you slow your pursuit, delay your responses, invest in your own projects as fiercely as in her invitation, you become a tuning fork for desire. She senses, perhaps against her will, that the world you inhabit is rich and dangerous, full of quests not yet finished, victories still unnamed. Each time you surprise her, not with performance, but with the sincerity of your independence, her mind relights with longing. She is thrown back into uncertainty, into the question that dopamine loves: how much of him is truly mine? Where does my influence end? What must I become for him to claim me, not just comfort me? Every withdrawal, every coolness, every retreat is a test of this unspoken advantage, a chance not just to pine, but to deepen into your own gravity. The men who succeed are those who treat these moments not as threats, but as invitations, to double down on their own pursuits, to become more themselves in her absence, not less. You must play the tension as a masterful violinist plays the string, never tightening until it snaps, never loosing until it dulls. The resonance of your presence is measured by the echoing possibility that you could, at any time, walk away. And so, the world of modern romance continues to repeat the ancient patterns, enacted over smartphones. In crowded rooms, in the trembling sign language of glances and delays. Do not chase the illusion that transparency is always virtuous. That certainty breeds everlasting connection. The paradox is the law. To be chosen, you must remain. At some deep level, unclaimable, your value to her is measured as much by the tension you sustain as by the ease you provide. She will not remember every kind word, every prompt reply, but she will never forget the feeling of longing you ignited by holding your own, by standing sovereign where others dissolved. In the final analysis, what is at stake is not simply sexual suspense or courtship drama, but the very architecture of human desire. The advantage possessed by the rarest men is the willingness to become the unknown in her life, a riddle wrapped in devotion, a signal of mastery in a world numbed by mass approval. Every time you resist the urge to collapse into her expectation, you realign yourself with the hidden order of attraction. To accept this is to accept loss, the loss of easy assurance, the loss of instant gratification, the loss of being the nice guy who trades effort for affection. But in this loss is the seed of transformation. You graduate from the ranks of those who beg for entry into her world, and ascend to those whose world she longs to enter, unsure, questioning, enthralled by the endless possibility of who you might yet be. Study the dance, sit in the ambiguity, let absence deepen your presence. When she leans away, step deeper into your own life, your own myth, the wild terrain of your projects and ambitions. Sooner or later, the test ends, and the result is written in the silent longing of her glance. The way she circles back, drawn not just by what you offered her, but by the signal that you, above all, cannot be possessed. For this is the final paradox of desire, the biological fact beneath every legend of erotic tension and romantic devotion, that the greatest intimacy is born from the shadow, from the air charged with possibility, from the signal of danger controlled, never unleashed. The hidden desire that pulses in every woman is this: to find a man whose gravity she cannot escape, but whose heart she can never completely read, a force of nature disguised as a lover. When you understand this, and not just intellectually, but in the marrow of your bones, you walk among the rarest men. The kind whose absence works as powerfully as his presence. The kind who knows, at the edge of closeness, that the real test is not what you offer, but what you preserve. The woman who pulls away is not lost. She is testing whether you still exist, whether your center holds. If you meet her test with curiosity, with composure, with an unquenchable devotion to your own myth, you become the unwritten chapter she cannot stop reading. There is a gravity here, an elemental truth hidden beneath the surface of our brightest dreams and darkest nights. The laws of attraction make sense only to those who accept the risk, to remain mysterious, to become an invitation, to draw her not with promises, but with presence. The advantage is yours, if you dare to live the lesson whispered in every ancient song, every untold story, every forbidden dream. When night falls and silence stretches between you, remember, attraction is not a formula, but a force. The test never ends. The signal is always in play. You are not the sum of your affections, but the radiance of what you have yet to reveal. Let the unknown work in your favor, and the law of advantage will bend, if only for an instant, to your will. Pause. Feel that silence, the space between the last message and her reply. It's more than anticipation. It's the marrow of the whole human story. A breathless quiet, dense with invisible meaning. In that pause, centuries collapse. Every myth, every romance, every tragic lament of love unreturned, all of it echoes here. In this liminal space between certainty and oblivion, you comfort yourself by tracing the contours of logic, seeking a pattern in her absence, a formula in her banished warmth. But the invisible forces shaping her withdrawal care nothing for the careful plans of men. They answer to a deeper code, written not in language, but in the trembling, electric grammar of instinct itself. Every culture attempts its own futile explanations. Love songs, fairy tales, theological decrees. Each ascribes to women a kind of indecipherable mystique. A mystery considered more magic than mechanism. But the truth is far less romantic, and far more dangerous. Attraction, especially female attraction, is not a matter of preference any more than the ocean is a matter of taste. It's a riptide, an unconscious summoning. Women, your mothers, your lovers, your daughters, are heirs to a neural inheritance that predates civilization. Every move she makes, when she leans in, draws back, answers late or lingers with a gaze, is governed first by a storm of signaling molecules, firing in silent, relentless patterns deep within the shadows of her brain. To see this is to reckon with a hard, exquisite reality. What you feel for her, yearning, hope, fear of loss, is mirrored in her, but transformed. Your male wiring bends toward the urge to secure, to possess, to resolve tension by solving it, but her circuitry feeds not on resolution, but on the living fire of uncertainty. Those evolutionary programs, sharpened by millions of years of peril, reward only those who induce the proper friction within her psyche. Too smooth, and the gears slip; too rough, and she recoils. The attraction she offers is not so much given as wrenched forth, summoned by the primal tension that makes her hesitate, makes her test, makes her retreat just when you are most sure she will stay. You may rage against these facts, resent the unfairness, despise the merciless machinery that ignores your devotion. But this is the elemental drama of desire. To win is not merely to approach, but to maintain the delicate play of approach and retreat forever. If you have ever watched a wild animal, a hawk circling over low grass, a panther in the dusk, you'll recognize the same dangerous grace in the ritual of attraction. Women, at the deepest level of instinct, are not searching for peace, but for the signal of hidden power, power over self, power over fate, power that makes her feel not just chosen, but chosen by something immense and irreducible. Consider what happens within her at the molecular level, beneath thought, beneath intention, when she first feels that tingle of interest, when dopamine surges in response to the unknown, when you are a puzzle, not a prize. Her world floods with meaning. Each uncertainty is a promise of revelation. Each delay, a sharpening of the senses. Her brain, saturated with dopamine, explodes into color. Desire becomes an ache, a question without answer. As you move closer, as your intentions become more obvious, oxytocin and vasopressin begin to stir in the bloodstream, the glue of mammalian bonding, the slow settling of trust. But this is where men make their fatal mistake, believing that comfort will seal her, that open declarations and eager availability will anchor her heart once it has been set adrift on the magnetic fields of first attraction. Instead, the chemistry tells a darker story. The moment uncertainty dies, so too does the immortal ache that first drew her in. When your world becomes too accessible, your response is too immediate, you cease to be a mystery and become a commodity. Her subconscious registers your surplus value, the confidence that you are already conquered, and the ancient circuits fire another signal. A warning bell. Is this challenge sufficient? Has the world been subdued too quickly, too easily, too soon? Millennia of survivors whisper their answer. Danger lurks not only in the unknown, but in the too easily known. You are conditioned, by modern tales and outdated advice, to believe that love is an exchange measured by consistency, transparency, and emotional generosity. But the female limbic system is ancient, pre-linguistic. It recoils from stasis. Stability, in excess, triggers not gratitude, but drift, somewhere deep in the caudate nucleus, responsible for learning, memory, and, most of all, reward anticipation. The machinery of her desire is calibrated like a tensioned wire. The thrill is in its potential to snap, not in its guarantee to last. Those ancestors who felt unease at the first sign of total predictability were those who survived. For to misjudge a man's intentions, to fall before his power had been proven, was a risk written in flesh and ash. Now you see the pattern. Attraction is not the child of certainty, but of possibility, alive only as long as doubt haunts its edges. This is the shadow law, the man who dominates his own ambiguity, who lives in mastery not over her, but over his need for assurance, is the one who triggers in her the deepest longing. He evokes in her mirror neurons a storm of mimetic tension. Her own nervous system dances to his enigmatic rhythms. Even at the height of closeness, he remains a riddle she aches to solve. He sparks longing by withholding its resolution, not through manipulation, but through authentic commitment to his own uncharted depths. Observe your own reactions when intimacy cools. Notice the urge that rises, an elemental compulsion to chase, to close the distance, to fix that which feels suddenly lost. This is your biology. Once security is threatened, testosterone and cortisol spike, fueling action, flooding your judgment with the need to reclaim certainty. But every remedy you attempt only signals greater vulnerability. The more you chase, the more grave the imbalance becomes. To her, each gesture of reassurance, every anxious prompt, is interpreted by neural circuitry evolved for detection of neediness, an ancestral proxy for lack of dominance. For subordination to her frame, the magnetic field inverts. Desire, once glowing and alive, atrophies beneath the weight of telegraphed supply. For a moment, step out of your instincts and into the cold architecture of strategy. Why did the warlords, the artists, the kings of old command legions of women? Not by gifts or assurances, but by myth, reputation, and an irresistible energy that radiated from their independence. Their power was not cruelty, but sovereignty. They orbited their own sun. Every withdrawal by a lover, every retreat, was met not with desperation, but unflinching calm. They became living invitations to penetrate an interior world, not to co-own a comfort zone. Here lies the psychological trap. In seeking to avoid loss, you lose. By seeking to fill the silence, you reveal its power over you. Women do not desire the drama of abuse, nor the roller coaster of unpredictability for its own sake. That is childish fantasy, a distortion. They hunger for emotional tension because it signals genetic value, the ability to grapple with uncertainty, to retain poise amid the chaos of attraction's wildfire. This makes you dangerous in the truest sense, not a threat to her well-being, but a challenge to her perception. The man who does not flinch at her retreat, who lets the silence breathe and does not rush to patch the wound, announces a higher order of value, one that need not beg, nor perform, nor persuade. And thus, a new paradox blooms. To possess her most intense desire, you must be capable of living, truly living, with her absence. You must become immune to the poison of waiting, at peace with ambiguity, a master not of her feelings but of your own. The irony is exquisite. The less you chase, the more you draw forth her curiosity, the less you yearn aloud, the more she yearns within herself. Your aloofness is not malice, but mastery, not neglect, but the embodiment of evolutionary truth. Women discover, in your composure, the same irresistible pulse that once guided their ancestors through forests of predators and uncertain alliances. The signal that here stands a man whose validation is self-sufficient, whose approval cannot be bought, coaxed, or demanded. Let us dwell for a moment within her internal world, the world so few men ever dare to see. Each retreat she makes is not a calculation to wound you, but a test of how you hold yourself in the dark. Her body thrums with the tension of possibility. Will you stand firm in your own gravity, or collapse into orbit around hers? Her attraction is activated, paradoxically, by the possibility of its loss. In leaving, she extends an unconscious probe. Will you flounder? Will you diminish? Or does your world continue, rich and unbroken, whether or not she returns? The answer is encrypted not in words, but in how you fill the void. The senses of the female mind are attuned, almost preternaturally, to detect the signal of masculine lack. Anything that betrays a need for external reassurance betrays a weakness written into blood. She can feel, sometimes in a single heartbeat, whether you stand for yourself, or whether you have already compromised the sovereignty she craves to enter. Biology rewards the man whose presence is an invitation, not a pursuit. She longs for the unspoken dare, the sense that there is always more to uncover, that the depths of your character remain always just beyond reach. This is not game playing, it is the authentic expression of that which attracts all life: mystery, power, and self-containment. The strongest chemical bonds form not when every electron is shared, but when opposing energies maintain tension across a gap. Desire is not about proximity. It is about the possibility that what you want could be lost. Why do fairy tales and romance novels, all authored unwittingly by the limbic system, fixate on the hard to win, the enigmatic, the commander of his own soul? Why did your ancestors, in every tribe and language, mythologize the unreachable hero, the king on the mountain, the lone wolf whose path could not be predicted or purchased? The answer is carved into our brains by millennia of selection. The story persists not because it is pretty, but because it is necessary. Women, on behalf of countless prehistoric mothers, remain ceaselessly vigilant for the subtle, unspoken cues that signal dominance over circumstance, a trait as valuable in forging dynasties as in surviving winters of famine. The modern world conspires to tranquilize this insight. Everywhere you turn, you are urged toward total transparency, encouraged to prove your affection by lowering every defense, discarding every boundary. You are tempted to believe that authenticity means total exposure, the extinguishing of every shadow, every edge, every hard and untamed corner of your spirit. But this is the opposite of what her nervous system craves. To be truly authentic is not to be available at every hour. It is to be so thoroughly committed to your own values, your work, your vision, your growth, that no temporary vacuum of her attention unseats you from your post. Watch what happens in the corridors of real life. The men who are least rattled by rejection, most indifferent to outcome, most fully engaged in pursuits greater than any one romance. These are the men who exert an almost gravitational influence on women. She senses, in their emotional neutrality, a risk and a thrill. She might win him, but he cannot be corralled. This ignites the reward system in her brain. Her dopamine levels spike at every ambiguity, every unresolved question, every moment when she senses his world will turn whether she says yes or no. The more you pull away from the desperate hunger to reassure her, the more she feels compelled, at first against her will, to close the distance herself. Yet understand, this is not an invitation to cruelty, nor a rationale for emotional gamesmanship. The deepest win is not the conquest of another's heart, but the cultivation of your own. When you become a man capable of living fully, with or without her, the game is not that you pretend to not care. It is that you genuinely cultivate a world so rich, so magnetic. Her attraction is a bonus, never a necessity. That is the ultimate psychological advantage. It cannot be fate, and, critically, it cannot be taken away by the shifting tides of her desire. With every withdrawal, every vanishing warmth, she is teaching you, your own tension is the gatekeeper of your value. When you command it, the world curves around you. Let it not escape your attention, the paradoxical hunger that female longing conceals. To be wanted is not enough, to be pursued, not adequate. Women, for all the march of civilization, remain bound by the old codes. To desire a man who is unmoved by external chaos is to fulfill the oldest secret, the forbidden knowledge. He leads, not because she follows, but because he can lead without need. Her ultimate fantasy is not submission to a tyrant nor assimilation by a servant, but surrender to a force whose momentum she cannot arrest, whose orbit she can enter, but whose center she cannot claim. You can try to rationalize your way out of this. You can study scripts, analyze texting patterns, memorize routines. But mastery is not a matter of method, it is a condition of being. Every withdrawal, every apparent slight, is an invitation to cultivate mystery, not explanation, to deepen your own well, to expand the private universe she strains. Always, to understand. Let her retreat. Welcome it. Let the silence loom. Let the question linger in the negative space between words. That is your advantage, the signal, conscious and unconscious, that your validation is internal, your passion undiminished by any single outcome. And so, as night grows old, as you check your phone one last time under the flicker of lonely neon, absorb the truth that only the most dangerous men ever learn. The woman who returns is drawn not by your reassurances, not by your declarations, but by the inescapable pull of your inner gravity. Your task is to become the world she cannot master, the puzzle she must solve, the presence she aches to join, but will never possess in full. The game is cruel only to those who cannot bear ambiguity, to those who thrive within it. The game is theirs to command. For in the secret theater of desire, the greatest victory is not in the chase, nor in the capture, but in the eternal dance of tension unresolved, a living paradox that no affection, no performance, no rule can overcome. If you would learn to dwell within this uncertainty, not as exile, but as king, you will find that the world's most elusive prize is suddenly, inexplicably, always within reach. The edge of her retreat is not the end, but the very threshold of beginning. You stand now at the border not of romance, but of legend, not a lover to be kept, but a myth to be entered. Every silent moment, every unanswered question, every hesitation in her voice is, if you dare perceive it, the most ancient, unwritten invitation of all.